Okay, these videos are brought to you by G66UK. That's your place to get an FM3, an FM9, or an ActiveX3 or a VP4 in the UK with no waitlist. Now, in this video, I wanted to talk about, I think, a little bit of a thing, definitely for me, that I've misunderstood and not really been able to get my head around in the past. So I thought, first of all, it might be an interesting thing to sort of conceptualize, and I'll talk you through how this started. So I had a chap ask me, he was trying to get this preset to work, which I created on an FM9. And he was saying, why is there no sound coming out of this thing? And I loaded it up on my FM3. I thought, well, clearly, what I've found is that because I created this on an FM9, these things, the grid on an FM3 is actually smaller than the FM9 and the ActiveX. So what happens is some of the connections that were made here are kind of broken. And I thought, okay, well, let's try and fix this up. And whilst I was doing so, it kind of got me thinking about how we could go about arranging a preset like this to, I think, maybe get more out of what we're doing. And it just got me thinking about the FM3 and possibilities in a whole different way. So let's just get all of this out of the way. So let's, first of all, I guess, try and get this working. So this was my first step. So we got delay here, we got multi-delay, and we got reverb. So I think this is probably what I needed to do. And like this. So at this point, I'm going to guess we now have So we now have a working preset, but what that got me thinking about is how can we actually use this grid in a way that kind of works better for us? And there's a few kind of thoughts that I had. This is how I ended up setting this up, I think. But what I thought was, why do we, well, for me, I often start with everything in the middle of the grid. And, you know, typically my presets might look like, you know, this. So start here, we go across. Now that's fine if it's a simple preset, but when things get a little bit more complicated, well, I think thinking about some other bits and pieces, because of course what we can do is much more than that. Now let me try and find, it's difficult to actually find examples of this, such as the nature that we don't necessarily I mean, here's a pretty cool example here. You're using the send here to go back to return here and create sort of a thing where the delays go back through a filter. I think that's a pretty cool concept. But in any case, what we can do is things that are a little bit more complicated. And so this was where I ended up, which was like, well, do things always need to, you know, start and end? So we got our input here, compressor and drive. So this is before the amp. Now the other cool thing about this is that the important blocks for me, if I was to be looking down at the actual unit, are all the things that I think that I might be likely to change. So the amp, the cab, the delay, the reverb, compressor, they're all within the first page. So I don't have to page across to see the rest of what's in the block that I'm thinking I might need to change. You know, like GEQ, pitch, and some of that stuff. Probably I'm thinking, would I touch it? Maybe not. So we can use the send and return. So first of all, what are the send and return things? So you find them feedback send, feedback return. So we got an opportunity to use 2 of these, I think. So we could even go, so you could do a line, let's try this a second. So you do a line here, so we, or here even, let's just start a guitar in. Then we'll go compressor, drive. And then here, feedback, send. So then that can go here, feedback, return. Then we could put an amp here. And cab. I don't know what these defaults are going to be, but we'll find out, won't we? So you need to make sure when you're doing this, the return by default will be off. So you need to turn that back up to 100%. And then you should have sound eventually. I'll put, so then we go here. We could do another send. Feedback, send 2. Feedback, return 2. Okay. And then you could do, you know, plex delay or whatever. Then delay. So we've still then even got room to do like a stereo thing. Reverb. And then output. So let's see. Is that going to work? I need to turn this one up as well. Yeah, we got there. Right, so and definitely that all fits within my FM9 page without having to go across. And likewise, I think that does too. So we can go all the way across like this. So you can think about this, you know, do you want more bits and pieces to go before the block, before the amp, or more bits and pieces to go in front? I don't know, I think it's just a bit of a different way that is sort of underexplored because we got such an amount of freedom within the grid that, you know, maybe we should be considering sometimes I can do something a bit more adventurous. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of an interesting space. So let's do that. Do that. Do that. And do that. So now I've got lots of gaps in front of the amp still. We could even go, yeah, there's a whole world of options that we could put stereo chorus here. This is just an area that I've not really seen many people exploring beyond doing your kind of normal thing. And it was just an idea that really just came to me because, well, sometimes, like, you might run out of space. And again, this was another thought about, like, where do you start your preset in order to have the most sort of room? So input here, then compressor, we go over to the amp. So here I can go sort of stereo if I want to, into a volume and pan, send back over here, and then we've still got enough room here to go parallel reverb, and then an output here. I think this is kind of an interesting sort of concept. The other thing is that this output block is quite useful live, because you can use this then to balance your scene levels. So when I'm on a gig, I'm having to, most of the time, sort of scroll across to the other sort of 3 pages across, or 2 at least, and change my scene levels if I'm finding like that I need to rebalance things. Whereas if I had it here or here, then I wouldn't have to press across. It would make my life a little bit easier. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Is that something that you've experimented with? Is this a stupid idea? It might be a stupid idea. It could be a stupid idea for sure, but I think it is an idea nonetheless. And, you know, this means that I don't have to shift the amp and cab around to get extra bits and pieces in there. The Fractal grid is shockingly flexible. And beyond that, we can also use the send and return to do even more creative things. But this is not a layout that I've seen anyone really experimenting with. And I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe it's just something that no one else needs or has ever really needed, because why would you need all of this stuff? And they might have a point. Just put in like an AC20. Okay, so let's just save that. Then scene 2, let's just get rid of almost all of it. Stay on channel A. Get rid of the flanger. Keep this one on. Turn off the plex delay maybe. Clean. Scene 3. Let's just copy scene 2, 3, and then turn on our drive. I don't know, let me know your thoughts on that, because I think there is something. You know, this idea, preamp, amp, and cab, post. You know, there's something right there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll catch you in another video soon. Cheers for stopping by.